Okay, so a few things that I want to go over regarding the last episode of The Bad Batch. So now we see that Omega is indeed Boba Fett's twin sister. You have a sister, a twin sister. You get it. So Boba was known as Alpha, which is a sick name, and then Omega is Omega, which maybe she'll be given a name of her own, something Fett, which I imagine that Boba would give her that name himself. I think she's going to don the white Boba Fett suit, the white Mandalorian armor suit that was essentially Boba Fett's suit that was in Sid's workshop, or not workshops, back room area. And I believe that she's going to befriend Boba. I think eventually Boba will find out that she is his twin sister. I don't think he'll be too happy about it. I think he'll be like, this is just weird, you know, why are you a mutated clone? And by the way, a lot of people are saying, okay, there are 5 mutated clones. What's her mutation? She doesn't have one. Her mutation is that she is a woman. She is a girl. The chromosomes switched, so XX, XY, and now she's a girl. So that's the mutation. That obviously something in the DNA mutated, and she became a woman. She's a lady Jango Fett. And now I believe that we're going to see her in the book of Boba Fett. I think we're also going to see her possibly in the Ahsoka show. I could see that happening. And I think that we even could see her in the... I know the Rangers show isn't happening anymore, but if they do make a show like that, I could see her being in there as well, because she is such an... I can see her being a very dynamic character in the sense that she can be friends with Fennec Shand, but she can also be friends with, you know, like Martez sisters and this and that, which are linked to Ahsoka. So I could see her being friends with Ahsoka as well eventually. I think it would be pretty sweet if she linked up with Bo-Katan as well as Ahsoka later in the future. And then we saw her in The Mandalorian. We see her in The Mandalorian Season 3, and we all kind of just know who she is when she, you know, dons the white armor, unless she, you know, paints her armor herself. Some sort of color of her own that she likes, kind of like Sabine Wren does with her hair. Now, going forwards, I feel like she will be kind of a thorn in Boba's side until he eventually grows quite fond of her as his own family member. Now, as for what the Kaminoans want to do with her, well, we found out in the last episode that if you didn't catch on to this, when she was looking at the, not the Bacta tanks, but the tubes of the old Kaminoans for their testing site on Borovio, I believe that she was then going to be a test tube child herself, a test tube subject. As Lama Su said, we're going to extract her DNA and then you can exterminate her. Kind of like a Grogu situation. Obviously, she has some very interesting DNA, and clearly, I believe that she must have some latent powers and abilities. And latent means that just abilities that haven't manifested themselves yet. And I say this because it's not going to be all that impressive and enticing for the Empire to be like, well, you just found another pure form of Jango Fett. Cool. What do you want us to do about it? We've had that for the last several years, and yeah, it was great, but we're ready to move on. So I feel like her mutation didn't just make her a woman, but it also added some, I don't know, maybe force sensitivity. I mean, she is pretty intuitive. She does pick things up very quickly. So it leaves the door open a little bit for some interpretation as to, okay, what's her deal here? Is she just a girl, or is that her only mutation in the Bad Batch, or is she got a little something else going on there? So it merely gets the wheels spinning in the head. Now, if she is force sensitive, then they definitely want her DNA. Imagine a force sensitive Jango Fett. That's better than a force sensitive General Grievous, considering Jango Fett didn't have any of the technological advancements Grievous had, and yet still was able to defeat and kill Jedi with his bare hands. No lightsaber, no forearms, nothing, just himself. So having a force sensitive Jango Fett would be really overpowered, actually. Yeah, a force-sensitive Mandalorian. And then this could tie in to Grogu, who I believe could also become a force-sensitive Mandalorian after he's done training with Luke. I think he will honor his father's path, Mando's path, once Din most likely will eventually die once his story is done, and Grogu will continue on his legacy and his story, as Grogu will live to probably be 900 years old or 1,000 years old. So I think that Omega's story has really only just begun, and in the beginning, I'm going to be real with you, I found her extremely annoying, but she's actually grown on me quite a lot now, and I actually really like her. So they've done the same thing with Ahsoka, and I think Dave Filoni knows what he's doing at this point. He essentially created a character like Ahsoka, which in the beginning everyone found super annoying. They're like, who is this girl? And now she's a fan favorite, literally one of the favorite characters for so many people. I love her as a character. So I think Omega is going to be the next Ahsoka, and she could perhaps become a Mandalorian. She could become a Force user if she teams up with Ahsoka. She could become a farmer for all we know. All I know is that she is a Fett clone. She is a Fett, essentially, and she's going to be pretty badass. Now, the only difference between her and Boba, you know, not biologically speaking, of course, is that she doesn't have Jango's training. So if you look in all the comics, you can see Boba was training with Jango firsthand, and none of the other clones got this type of treatment from Jango. He actually just viewed them as cannon fodder. So he just disregarded them as anything special. It's just money to him. He's whatever. You know, he's doing his job. You just create these clones. They're just meat shields, essentially, for your little war. He didn't care. He was quite pragmatic of a being. So I believe that she will have to really, really build up her character stats throughout the show and other shows that we may see her, unless of course she dies, which would be a total shocker. I don't see that happening, but I don't feel like they would put so much development to this character to have her just, you know, die like that. I think everybody around her is going to die to save her, and I feel that we will all be able to connect with all of these previous characters like Clone Force 99 and Rex and all that when we see her later on as an adult. I think they're just making these, you know, Dave Filoni is the guy to make these kind of characters that have this amazing development and to continue this legacy that was like Ahsoka. So I'm very stoked to see that. I'm very excited to see that. As for her training with Luke Skywalker, it's a bit of a stretch. I don't think that'll happen, but her training with Ahsoka, I could see that happening for sure. Now, also what I was saying, regarding her being as trained as Boba Fett, it's just not going to happen because she didn't have Jango as a mentor, because Jango's dead. In the comics, we see Boba was extremely ruthless, almost more ruthless than Jango, and in some cases he was. So to me, it kind of leaves the door open as to which way the pendulum she's going to sway. You know, is she going to be more good? You know, it's kind of like you're playing, you know, Knights of the Old Republic. Good, or is she going to be a little more evil? So I'm thinking that she's going to really have to figure her way out, and with the Bad Batch being her guide, I think she's going to be all right. I think she's going to be just fine. I think her morals are going to be a little higher than Boba's, whereas Boba's, you know, was raised to just, you know, get the job done, regardless of morality or ethics or anything like that. And I think that she's going to have a little more of a, I don't want to say heart, but she's going to have a little more of a moral compass compared to Boba Fett. And this could possibly cause some issues between them should they meet, which I believe they eventually will. And should they go on some missions together, I could see her maybe weighing him down or slowing him down, and then she would disagree with him because he's, you know, just wanting to get the job done and do this and that. And she's a little more moral and a little more, I guess, rational, a little more good, passionate, and caring, as Boba is quite callous. And I think as he ages, he becomes less and less callous, but especially as a little boy, if judging from the comics, he didn't really care. Yeah, he was pretty ruthless, and it was pretty cool to see him being trained like this. So I hope you enjoyed this video and my theories on it. I think that, you know, once they do get her, then if they do get her, and what they want to do with her is that they could either keep cloning her and make a pure form of Jango. As we know, they did say that their DNA for Jango is running thin. So if they get her and they clone her, then they have a pure form Jango from a female. Could they then perhaps combine that female with some other species, and, you know, with gene pooling or whatever, and then create some sort of like monster species that would just be elite? Possibilities are endless here, especially with cloning. And if you didn't know, if you didn't watch the previous video about Kamino, cloners, the Kaminoans, actually, their race was dying. So it was a land, it was full of land, that planet. It wasn't a water planet. They went through an ice age, the ice melted, and it basically became a water planet. So in order to survive, they started to do genetic modifications upon themselves, and they altered a lot of things. And this Bora Vio is this abandoned facility that we saw in Bad Batch episode 9, was that place where they did some of these experiments. And we saw different species of things. In Legends, the Kaminoans also did a lot of experiments and stuff for the rest of the galaxy, and commissions for the rest of the galaxy on different kinds of species and splicing them together, putting them together, and creating weird looking things for certain projects. Like there was one species that, I forget the name, but they essentially had shovels for hands, and they were meant for mining. They did these sort of modifications upon themselves in order to prolong their own existence, and along the way, I suppose, there were some complications. So Omega is obviously a very, very special being. There are no complications with her. She just turned out to be a female, and then now she's... you let me know if you think she's force sensitive or not. She could very well be, but who knows. Hope you enjoyed this little theory video. Thought I'd just make a quick one, and it ended up dragging on, as usual. Have a great day. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next video.